Airline passengers and their sentiments analysis. Is this analysis only for the airline runners or for someone who cares about the passenger sentiments? By the end of this analysis, I would be able to conclude that it is more than that. I, Rahul Sharma, welcome you all the viewers to this analysis that will be using the MySQL and Microsoft Excel for data science analysis purpose. So let us begin with this analysis. This project is a small effort from my end to make everyone understand that how different business models and different business questions can be answered by correctly interpreting the data through data science tools. So we are beginning with the contents of this analysis. First, we would have a look at the case study. That is nothing but understanding the data that we have got in our hands. Later, we will be defining the objectives. What is the motive behind this analysis? That's what the objective is going to cover. The data analysis part would be interpreting the data through different graphs and different models that were prepared to understand the data better. On understanding the data, we would be easily be able to get the findings and the insights. That would later help us, or I should say, that would help the airline to improve their business model and improve their business. The case study. The case study is nothing but understanding what the data that we get in our hands consists of. In my case, it consisted of 25,000 plus passengers' feedbacks, ratings given to a particular airline. It was a European airline, hence the European Aviation Safety Agency had uploaded this data on their public domain and it was available to me. The passengers are categorized based on their age, gender, seat class, the purpose of their travel, the distance that they traveled, and the loyalty program status of the passenger. The ratings were given by the passengers out of 5 to 12 different facilities and services a normal passenger comes across in their flying experience. This is the raw data set on which the analysis has been conducted. As you can see, consists of 25,977 rows. So that's how many passengers have given their feedbacks, and that's what this data set is all about. Now that we have seen how vast the data set that we have got in our hands for this particular analysis is, we need a proper set of objectives so that we are clear about what data we need to extract from this particular data set. The first one would be to identify the major categories of the passengers flying with the airline. This particular objective can be implemented on any business model. The business runners must know their target audience, and without that, they cannot improve or change their way of working. The second objective here is to identify which services and facilities are lowly rated by those major categories of passengers, the target audience. What are their dislikes? What services have they rated low? That's the second objective. The third one is for the business runners to understand that what can be improved, what can be done differently to improve the passenger count and improve their service qualities and ratings. For the ease of going ahead with this analysis, I have divided this analysis into 2 parts. The first one would be, you can say, identifying the target passengers, the particular category that is flying the most with the airline currently. And the part 2 would be to identify the low rated services by that target audience that needs improvement. For the first part of the analysis, that is to understand that what category of passengers is flying the most with this airline, we need to categorize the passengers into different sections based on their age, gender, the seat of class that they traveled in, the purpose of their travel, the distance that they traveled, and whether they were part of the loyalty program or not. As you can see, those categories are further divided into various different categories so that the particular target audience can be identified in a proper fashion. This categorization was done with the help of MySQL, which is a very relevant data science tool that was used for this analysis. MySQL can be undoubtedly termed as the world's most popular open source relational database management system. I'll show you how this has helped me in my analysis. These are the SQL queries that helped me in identifying the target passenger category. So first, I create the database airline sentiments. Within that, the table test was created that had several columns that were defined. Later, I did some update in the data set. After that, I categorized all the passengers and found how many were flying with this particular airline. I took the average of all the ratings, of all the service ratings, and the data was also grouped based on the class and the type of travel and the customer type. This was done for several categories, such as for the passengers who were traveling from 0 to 2500 kilometers. It was also done for the flight distance between 2500 to 5000 kilometers. By using this particular query, the passengers were divided based on their gender and their age. So these were the queries that were used to identify, or I would say, firstly, to divide the passengers in different categories. Now I would show you how this query can be run and how this particular, as I have run this particular set of queries, I've got this result table that shows passengers traveling in economy, business, or economy plus kind of seat. What was the purpose of travel? How many passengers? The total number of passengers is being shown over here. What is the average flight distance that they traveled? The departure and arrival rating. We'll come back to that later on. The ratings would come on later, on the later part of the analysis. But this particular table was exported by me. As you can see, these were the exported tables that was already done by me in the Excel format so that I can create the graphs and the views for the better understanding of the data that was already done by me. Now, as we have seen, to identify our target audience, the age was divided into three categories: less than 24 years old, 24 to 39 years old, who are also called the millennials, who are the most frequent flyers, I would say, with any airline, and the 39 years and above passengers. The gender was male and female as it was defined. The seat of class, in which class of seat did most of the passengers traveled. There were three categories that were given in the data set: the economy plus, and the business class. The purpose of travel was defined for each passenger, and it is divided into business and personal. Personal may include um, someone traveling for their holidays, or someone traveling for their own personal reasons. So that's what personal is all about. The distance of travel I divided into two categories: below 2500 kilometers and above 2500 kilometers, because the data set wasn't defined in domestic and international passengers categories. For the ease of it, of to understand that how many of the passengers are traveling up to 2500 kilometers, that would come under domestic, that may come under domestic flying, if not entirely. So to understand that aspect of the analysis, to get that part correctly, this categorization was done. The loyalty program, the airline has their own loyalty program, wherein a person flying more frequently gets some extra bonuses, some extra advantages over a regular or a first time flyer. So that's what this loyalty program is all about. I wanted to see whether whether most passengers are enrolled with the loyalty program with this particular airline or not, or are they new passengers or someone who hasn't enrolled yet. So for that particular reason, this categorization was done. Now, as I had divided the passengers in three age groups: less than 24, the millennials, and the ones with the age 39 and above. Uh, I also divided the passengers based on the class of their travel, which is business class, economy, or the economy plus, and their purpose of travel as business or personal travel. So, as you can see, when I analyzed the data, it was as I exported it on the Excel. This particular graph was created, bar graph was created, and it clearly shows that most of the passengers who are traveling for business purpose choose the business class of seat or the economy compared to Eco Plus, in a very huge difference, you can say. The 39 years old and above can afford the business class the most. That's not surprising actually, and the millennials aren't that far behind, as you can see over here. On the personal travel passengers category, we can see the economy. The economy class was the most preferred one, with the highest percentage of passengers choosing the economy class of all ages. So the finding from this particular categorization was that 92% of the passengers are in these three categories alone. 92%. So that's a pretty big number. Over here, the categorize is done on the basis of the gender. In the gender part, the comparison, the difference isn't much. So for that particular reason, I have ruled out the categorization based on the gender. Both the genders have equally contributed in all categories. It's very pretty evident. So for that particular reason, I haven't divided whether we are going to focus on males or females. Both are equally important for this particular airline, as it is clearly visible. When it comes to categorization based on the flight distance, how much, what was the distance that the passenger traveled? It can be clearly seen that the flight distance from 0 to 2500 kilometers had the highest percentage share, whether it was for business travel or for personal travel. So 85% of the business travelers traveled for 25,000, less than 2,500 kilometers, whereas 98% of the personal reason travelers travel for less than 2,500 kilometers. Over here, the loyalty program that we spoke about, that we discussed, and the seat class. As you can see, the unenrolled or the new passengers are 18%, whereas that leaves us with 82% of total passengers enrolled in the loyalty program. That's a huge number. Now, out of these 82%, we can see that 41% and 34%, the 41% of loyalty program passengers traveled in business class, whereas 34% of loyalty program passengers traveled in economy class, and only 7% of loyalty program passengers traveled in economy plus. So since these two are the major chunks, is the major category, it comes under 91% of the total passengers within the loyalty program. 91% of the passengers in the loyalty program choose to travel in business or economy class. And that's why these two categories are excluded from the major category of the passenger. So that brings us to this conclusion. Determining the target passengers categories based on the findings. Whatever the findings that we have got, I've mentioned it over here. What did that give us? What is the final outcome that we got from the findings? An average of 86% of the total passengers travel in the business and the economy class. They travel for less than 2,500 kilometers, and they are enrolled in the loyalty program of the particular airline. So our target audience, our target passengers are right here in this category. So this is the chronology that we followed to come at this particular number, at this conclusion, which is of the major passengers who are traveling with this particular airline. This is the chronology that we followed. We first had the entire data set in our hands. Later, we found out who are traveling in the business and the economy classes. We concentrated on those passengers. Further, we concentrated on who are traveling less than 2,500 kilometers, and to further filter the passengers from that particular list, who all are enrolled in the loyalty program, we are going to focus on them. So hence the target audience, why are they important to us? Because their feedback to the various services and facilities provided by the airline is of utmost importance. We are going to focus on the feedbacks of these particular passengers for now, so that if they are not rating some particular service or facility in that high in the high ratings, then the airline must improve them right away, or else there is a chance of them losing business, losing out these passengers. So that mustn't happen. So for that particular reason, we are going to focus on the reviews of these passengers. So now that we know that 86% of the passengers are the largest contributors to the revenue of the airline, we have concluded our part 1 and we are going to move on to part 2 of our analysis. Now we are moving ahead to the part 2 of our analysis. This would be dealing with the ratings given by the major passengers category who are traveling with this airline. But before we go ahead, I want to first make sure that you understand all these services and facilities that are given to the passengers. Now, for the ease of understanding of this analysis, I have divided the 12 facilities and services into 4 phases of flight, which are the pre-flight facilities that the passenger enjoys, the onboarding, the services while flying, and the post-flight services or feedback that a passenger has. So, the first service is the departure or the arrival time. What does that mean? The departure and the arrival time of the flight has to be as per the convenience of the passenger. It should be suitable for a business person. A business traveler would prefer a flight which caters to his 9 to 5 schedule of working. So, whether this airline is successful in providing that facility to the passenger or not, that rating is being covered in the departure or the arrival time. The online booking is the second pre flight facility that the passenger enjoys. What is the ease of booking the ticket online? Is the passenger able to book the seat that they want? Whether it's the window or the aisle or the middle one, whichever one the passenger prefers. Are those facilities there on the online booking app or not? That's what the online booking facility covers. The gate location. How easy is for the passenger to find the gate and to reach it? There are many different airlines at the airport. Whether the gate location of your flight was clearly mentioned or not, that comes under the gate location facility. Now we'll be talking about the second phase of the flight, that would be the onboarding. It starts from the check in service. Was the check in counter crowded? Are there enough counters provided by the airline to check in their passengers? Were the business class passengers separately attended? That's what the check in service is all about. The onboarding services is the time between the passenger checking in and the time he gets on the aircraft. While getting on the aircraft, was the aircraft clean, cool, and was he welcomed warmly by the staff or not? All that comes under the onboard services. The seat comfort. As soon as the passenger gets on their seat, was it comfortable? What was the feeling? Did he feel relieved and relaxed? All that comes under the seat comfort part, and those are rated by the passengers that we are going to look into. The third one is the services while we are in flight. The leg room. Was the leg room comfortable enough? Or is it so that the aircraft is crunching the economy passengers, or even after giving enough legroom to the business class passengers, they aren't happy with the service? The rating will tell the truth. The food and beverages. The food and the beverages that were provided on board, were they costly? Were they of good quality? All that will come out in the ratings of the food and the beverages. The third service that a passenger enjoys while flying is the in-flight entertainment. While flying, we see that most of the screens aren't working at many times, and the person is not able to enjoy the movies or the music on board. So, whether that is the case with this particular airline or not, we are going to find out in the ratings of the in flight entertainment given by the passengers. The fourth phase would be the post flight services, such as the in flight services that were given during the flight. Was the food served properly to them or not? That's the feedback that we get from the passengers after the flight. That's why it has been put down in the post flight service analysis. Next is the baggage handling. When you receive the baggage back on the conveyor belt at the gates, were they damaged by any chance, or were they lost by the airline? That would again be broadcasted in the reviews given by the passengers in the baggage handling. And last but not the least is the cleanliness, which is of the utmost importance in nowadays because of the COVID, whether the flight is safe and clean enough to ensure that everyone travels in a hygienic space and comes out without any infections. That comes under the cleanliness. Now we are looking at the chart which shows the average of all the ratings out of 5 given by the passengers, the major target passenger category that we have just got in our part 1 of the analysis. Now, in the second part, we'll be looking at how well or how bad they have rated the particular facilities or the services. The first one is the pre-flight facilities that includes the departure and the arrival time, the ease of online booking, and the gate locations. They are all rated out here. The passenger categories are depending on their purpose of travel, and the seat, the class of the seat in which the passenger were traveling. So, for the ease of the analysis, we have found our target category of passenger, and 3 is what, if we take out of 5 to be a good rating for a particular service, then we can see that many of the services are below that mark. So, with this chart that I have created using Microsoft Excel, I can be sure that the departure and the arrival times aren't that good, aren't the passengers traveling in the business class and the economy class for the business travel purposes aren't happy with the departure and the arrival times. Now we are looking at the second pre-flight service, which would be the ease of the online booking. That, as it is pretty evident, the personal travelers have rated it lower than the business travel purpose passengers. So, what can be done to rectify, to bring the ratings up? I guess the interactivity of the mobile app can be increased. It can be made more user friendly. The user interface can be redesigned to meet up the expectations of the passengers and make it easy for them to understand that what is the process of booking the tickets and of getting the right seats. Now, coming to the gate locations, it is pretty evident from the charts that they have been able to come close to the 3 point mark out here, signifying that the passengers did not have that hard time in finding the gates, and they were okay with the gate locations. I guess the gate location wasn't that far from the terminal building, and the services till the gate locations were quite good. And that's the reason that the passengers chose to rate it close to 3. Let's go on to the next one. The onboarding facilities. That includes the check-in services, the onboard services, and the seat comfort. The check-in services are well above the 3 point mark, some even going even above 3.5 for the personal travel economy class, and for the business travel persons in the business class, touching almost 4 out here, which is quite good. The check-in services have done a great job, I see. And coming on to the onboard services, again, they all have managed to cross the 3 point mark, and that signifies that the crew and the security and the ground staff have done a fairly decent job in making sure that the passengers had a good experience. Whereas when it comes to seat comfort, it is pretty obvious that the economy class passengers would not be that happy when it comes to the seat comfort. Maybe the distance between the two seats aren't that much, and the quality of the seats did not add to their comfort. That was the reason that it was rated quite low. Whereas in case of the business class, they have a different seat, as we all know, so they were rated quite good compared to the economy class. So the takeaway from here would be improving the seat comfort of the economy class passengers, if that is possible, for the airline. Now, coming to the ratings of the services that a passenger enjoys while the aircraft is in flight mode. So, we see that the business class passengers traveling for the business purposes are happy with all the three services, that is the legroom, the food and the beverages, and the in-flight entertainment systems. Almost all services have managed to cross the 3 point mark, fairly going above 3.5 as well over here, and over here as well, the IFE. So the IFE systems and all have managed to cross the 3 point mark, which is quite good. The food and the beverages again have done the same. All the services have, but over here particularly we can see that the leg room for the economy class passengers traveling for the business purposes wasn't up to that mark compared to all other services. So that can be looked into. We can make sure that the people, the business flyers, they are quite regular. With any airline, they are quite regular. So the airline must look into doing something for them, for the economy class entirely, to increase the legroom space for them. Going on to the next one, the post flight, the afterthoughts that a passenger has. So these three come under that, which is the in-flight services, the baggage handling, and the cleanliness. So after the flight, a person thinks that how was the in-flight experience? How was the cabin? How was the lighting? How was the cabin smelly? Or how was the crew? Did they greet you well? Did they give you good service? Were you attended properly? All that comes under the in-flight services. And we are seeing over here, we'll first check on the in-flight services. The business class passengers traveling for both purposes were quite happy with it, and so were the economy class passengers traveling for personal reasons. But the business travel purpose passengers traveling in the economy class were not happy with the in-flight services, as it has not managed to cross the 3 point mark. So this shows that the airline needs to work on the in-flight services to please the business travel purpose passengers traveling in the economy class. Moving on, going ahead to the baggage handling, the ground staff who are handling the baggages, the cargo department is doing a fairly decent job for all the passengers, except for the business class passengers who are going out for the personal reasons, maybe for a holiday or some XYZ reason. They haven't rated the baggage handling that high. The reason can be maybe some of them may have lost their baggage, or it would have got damaged during the transit. So it can be any reason for them to rate it lowly. So that can be one of the possibilities. There can be multiple reasons to that. Coming on to the cleanliness, it's really rated really well, as it's pretty evident out here. The lowest is 3.29 for the economy class passengers, but that's fairly okay, I feel. So yeah, the airline has done a fairly decent job when it comes to cleanliness. Now this is the gist or the summarized conclusion that we can say that would come out to be the scope of the improvement for the airline. This is the takeaway. This is the final outcome that we have got from the raw data. So just imagine a raw data which looked pretty messed up and pretty messy, and we did not know what to do with it. But when we asked the data the right questions, when we try to find the right answers from the data, we succeed in it. And this is the outcome of it, as it can be seen that the pre-flight facilities, the scheduling, more flights have to be scheduled before or after the business hours. That is because the business travel purpose passengers have rated it low. So this can be the final conclusion for that. When it comes to the online booking, the app can be designed in a better way. The UI can be of a better interactive form to engage the audience. The gate locations are good. The onboarding, the check-in is good. The cabin crews are to be briefed about greeting all the passengers. That is because the onboard services were not that much appreciated by the personal travelers. For that very reason, And the economy class seats needs to be more comfortable. That's pretty evident and obvious. The services while flying, the legroom space to be made better for the economy class. That's understandable. That's why it is the economy class. But improvements can be made. There is a scope of improvement in everything. So yeah, there can be here too. Food and the beverages quality on the menu can be improved further. There is no stopping them. And the in-flight entertainment for the economy class can be made as good as the business class, because the business class passengers were far more happier than the in-flight entertainment compared to the business class people. Coming to the business travelers, in the in-flight experience can be improved. We can give them different facilities, like we can take their codes and keep it in a separate compartment. That is quite common in the European countries. The laptop charging points, which is in demand, it can be made sure that the laptop charging points are there on the seats, and the seats are made compatible with these charging points and they are working. So this the passengers can work while they are flying. Uh, the baggage handling of all the business class passengers to be handled perfectly. There should be no exceptions in this, and for that very reason, this is mentioned. Cleanliness ratings are fairly decent and good. So yeah, these are the scope of the improvements. That's the final conclusion of this analysis. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. I hope the main motive behind this analysis has come through and come out clearly to all of you, that any kind of data can be modeled and engineered with the right set of tools that the data science provides, and it can be analyzed for the benefit of any business model. And we need to ask the right questions so that we know that where we are heading, and the data will, and we should know the capability of the data, whether it is able to answer those questions or not. This particular analysis could have been more diverse. There is no end to it. We could have tried to find how many male passengers are traveling for personal reasons in economy class. Anything we can study, we can ask the data any kind of question. It just depends what is the main objective behind those questions. That needs to be cleared up. So thank you so much for viewing so far, and I hope it gave you some insight, and you are taking away something from this analysis video. Thank you so much.